we all need to help each other. God, it's tea. Okay. Cool. So, just a bit about today. The focus is around stress, the different types of stress there are, and then also how we can help our clients in relation to the stress impacts and their weight loss, because I know that's a big focus for Back on Track, and then what we can do about that. So for me, I really think about stress kind of three different ways. One is that typical stress that we tend to hear about. Oh, I'm stressed out, I'm so busy. That's that kind of stress where we are truly busy. We've got so many things on our plates these days. We're just kind of always meeting time. But I also like to, and I do make this point with my clients, is if I ask about stress, not everyone's going to understand what stress means, and in fact some people will shy away from even being anywhere near the word stress because I just think it's kind of a sign of weakness. So it's not necessarily always stress in the fact that they're stressed out and upset and sad, but they're actually busy. Even though they might be liking what they're doing, that they're actually just busy doing that and having to, work through time every day. Then there's the physical side. So we've got physical stress, which is obviously what you guys, that's your thing. Yeah, so whether that's exercise or whether that's in your work environment. And sometimes I think we can forget about some people have a very high physical load for their job. And then, we're putting exercise in the mix. So just to keep that in mind. And then also around calorie restrictions. So I know that that's a big thing for what Brian and Jenna really push through the gyms, is that calorie deficit is really not your friend, and then I'll talk a bit about how that does affect our body and actually increase stress load. All right, so that typical stress part, I really want to just point out cortisol is not public enemy number one. We've created it to be that way. Cortisol is actually really important. We need it for our blood pressure, we need it for blood sugar regulation, it actually helps us support our immune system. So it's only when we put cortisol into play way too many times. Now, that's that first picture on there, is really understanding how cortisol is triggered off. So we have a stress, whatever it may be, on some of the things I've already mentioned, and then our hypothalamus is triggered. We then release that ACTH hormone, that then triggers off the adrenal cortex, which is the outer layer of our adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland sits on the top of our kidneys, and then voila, cortisol is released, and it goes off doing what it needs to do. Other point I want to make about cortisol, it is actually a catabolic hormone, so it will straight away go and start to break down nutrients to utilise them, so we can hit that fight or flight response. So if we just remember that it is a hormone that is actually there to break down, and then you'll see how that really becomes obvious as I continue to talk, because the impact that it will have if we're in that perpetual state of cortisol being released. Cortisol does definitely have its peaks and troughs throughout the day, and we should embrace those rather than try to work against them. Meaning that we wake up in the morning and yes, our cortisol is probably it is at its peak in the morning. So, some people don't have a choice and they do need to exercise in the morning, but you're probably better off as far as if you've got someone who's very high stress, and you can see that, you can kind of see it, they seem a bit rattled, you can see that they're not really managing stress well, that maybe it might be better suited for them to exercise in the afternoon when their cortisol levels are dropping rather than them at that peak in the morning. So in saying that, our cortisol level will drop, and that's that next little chart there, that picture, that graph showing about cortisol, that we will drop. After 12 we start to drop, and people straight away start going for, maybe in this case, pre-workouts, coffee, and ideally, yes, you just need to acknowledge the fact that you are having a dip, and that is normal, and to go, okay, it's okay. And I say reach for a dark bit of chocolate or an apple. which honestly works. You should try it. Rather than having that afternoon coffee, to have the apple, and you will see how much it actually really does help support your energy and get you through that lull that you're going to go through. And then if you do have that afternoon coffee, just wanting to point out that it can then start affecting your sleep, which will then exacerbate your stress and increase cortisol. So just remembering those points. All right, so what we want to talk about now is, I just want to point out with women in particular, when they are running with a high state of cortisol, this actually will then trigger off testosterone to be excreted, and then they've got high androgen levels, and then we start seeing the impact on them hormonally. So we start seeing potentially acne, their mood shifts, their cycle starts to move around and not make sense to them, may even stop in some cases. And what does that do? It affects their motivation for exercise, which is what we're all here for, is for them to keep motivated. So we're really trying to support our clients to realise that, and then I'll talk about how to try and help them manage that a bit better. The other thing is, when we have these high cortisol levels, we set off another trigger, which is increasing acidity level in the body. Now, we would ideally love our blood acidity to be around a pH of 7.35 to 7.45. And then once we start going lower, so that increases acidity, so we start getting into that 6 realm, we start hitting what we call metabolic acidosis. This will actually increase cortisol excretion, but cortisol excretion will increase the acidity pH to rise, to drop. So it's really a negative feedback system. So we don't know, it's kind of like, it could be that chicken or egg scenario, whether or not the whether the stress is actually increasing the acidity because of the cortisol, but then high acidity will increase cortisol production. So the way we manage this, and it's really hard to pinpoint if someone is acidic, but if you're hearing that they're really not eating that many vegetables, they're on medication and they're not sleeping well, and they're just like on super high protein and it seems like nothing else is in their world, 9 times out of 10, and they're carrying extra body weight, so their BMI is high, they will 9 times out of 10 be metabolic acidosis. And really they're going to need, and what the impact on that, and actually really disturbs their chance of weight loss, is it's going to be too hard for them to create that muscle density, because unfortunately when we're acidic, that binds to the function of protein within the muscle, and you'll actually have an inability. So they can be like training, like nothing's working, I feel like I'm eating right, nothing's working, and they're just not getting that muscle density that they're after. So that's something to query. And they can get that checked. They can do a pH urine test, but then they can also use pathology. So that's one of those times when you can go, you know what, maybe you should see Maria, or go see a natural therapist, and they'll be able to help you with that. And that's where that whole bingo wing stuff comes in as well. Women that are running in that high acidity load for, or moderate acidity load throughout their life, they will end up with that muscles, or that skin sagging, because the body will do whatever it can to try and neutralise the blood, because it doesn't like being in that state. So it will actually take nitrates from your muscle, and in turn it will take calcium and magnesium as well. So then calcium, bone density becomes an issue as well. So running high acidity definitely places a big stress load onto the body.
What are some causes?
Causes? Living in a high protein space, so red meat constantly, not enough vegetables to counteract
So fibre?
Fibre, yeah, I mean fibre's part of that, definitely. Where am I? Alcohol.
Coffee.
All the fun stuff. Coffee,
processed foods, sugar.
The chocolate's not so bad. I mean, if you're living on Cadbury, chocolate, I'm going to be like, nah. But if we're going for a good 70+% on the chocolate category in small amounts, which you would anyway, because it's too rich. But stress, high exercise load, which is actually coming up in my next bit. So
What about gut health?
definitely.
Like inflammation of the gut?
Inflammation will increase, so acidity will increase the inflammation.
Yeah.
So if we're high stressed because of eating right, not sleeping right, too much alcohol, medication, then that's going to drive the acidity up, and therefore it's going to exacerbate your inflammation. And if you have pain, it's going to then make that even worse.
What
Will that trigger gout as well?
Totally, exactly, totally. It's in
So-
that same space.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and obviously this high cortisol state, first thing obviously try and fix their gut health, yeah? Like
Definitely. I mean,
reduce
you
the
do
inflammations,
reduce inflammation in the gut, and you start to work on
so
that.
like wheat
Where
products.
I'm talking about this metabolic acidosis, they may need a bit more, and you can actually, there's a supplement that's just got alkaline component to it, because the amount of vegetables you would have to eat to try and counteract that acidity level, be sick of it.
But for us as trainers, basically like
You as trainers definitely
avoid
gut health.
avoid alcohol, increase fibre,
Find somewhere
less
to
processed foods,
de-stress.
meditation.
You know, that's that
Yeah.
part, that actually taking time to de-stress or find something that puts you in a sympathetic, parasympathetic, engage your parasympathetic nervous system, so that's that relaxing, which you will do as soon as you take a deep breath, you will engage that nervous system, compared to being in a sympathetic state, which is that then triggering off that cortisol reaction. It's going to be more alkaline just by doing that. Yeah, does that make sense? So I wanted to now move to sleep and that impact it has, which does kind of feed in the back of what I was saying about having that afternoon coffee. When we get that 3 o'clock lull to go, I acknowledge the fact that I am feeling tired, and to get your clients to acknowledge that, I am feeling tired and it will pass. The best thing I can do for myself is have a glass of water, an apple, some sort of fruit, or a dark piece of chocolate. Fine, if that's where you want to go. But getting into that coffee state is going to start affecting that sleep. And we start affecting that sleep, then we end up in this cycle where it's just hard to get off, because if you're not sleeping right, then you're chasing your tail all day, trying to get that va-voom and get that dopamine hit. And we'll do that with coffee and chocolate and wine. Yeah?
3 p.m. wine.
It's very
3 p.m. wine.
3 p.m. wine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the 5 o'clock somewhere's come to 3 o'clock.
Happy hour.
Yeah. So sleep, definitely, asking about how their sleep is. I think sometimes we can forget that, that we're kind of like, focusing on diet, making sure your exercise is right, but then we're not asking how you're sleeping. And if you're sleeping right, you're going to feel less stress throughout the day. You'll actually handle stress better if you're sleeping better. So some tips around that: definitely getting a sleep routine in place. It's daggy, it sounds daggy, and just be honest with them. I know this sounds like stuff your parents would have told you, but we often forget it because we're just being in this world so busy that we just forget. So things like making sure that the lights are more of an orange tinge at home at night, having lamps on, not having those big down lights on at home, those white lights, because really, you go camping, you'll be to bed early because you're out there and your body's going through the proper circadian rhythm it should, with the sun going down, and then you start producing melatonin. Your serotonin converts to melatonin, and then you get tired and you go to sleep. So if you're at home and you're just on the computer and on your phone and you've got white lights shining from everywhere, it's a first no-no. So definitely changing to lamps and more of those, what is it, the pearl shade on the globe is the way to go. And then things like going, I'm going to get a tea that I really like. That's something to do for yourself and really important. Reading, of course we all love binging. Maybe that's a bit exposing on me. I love binging on Netflix TV, but I know that it's actually not good for me to do that too late, because you just end up too wound up before bed. So just talking to them about some tips around sleep hygiene, which is the favourite term that sleep specialists love, and it's true, there definitely is merit to it.
Meditation before bed.
Definitely. You know, there was this, I remember things coming out about going, oh, don't meditate before bed because you're not really doing the true meditation form because you're sleeping. You know, who cares? Like, you're relaxing. Good, great. We can't be I think we can't be too picky in today's world of going, you need to place this exact time. If that's going to make you sleep better and unwind you for the day, then do it there for sure. In fact, on that, I absolutely love, there's an app called Calm, and it's so cool.
Isn't it awesome?
I mean, I've had, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Actors read me stories before bed. It's really awesome. So I love that, you know, like, I think that's really cool. They read you like adult stories, bedtime stories. It's really awesome. I love it. So, yeah, that's something definitely, you know, my husband and I will be like, we can feel both of us feeling wound up. For whatever reason, just can't sleep. We'll put the app on and we just choose an actor. It's the best. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I heard sleep can affect your ghrelin and leptin levels. I just want to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, totally. This is an interesting space because
James spoke about that.
what was that?
James.
Can't.
Yeah. Green pancake.
Yeah, so the ghrelin and leptin scenario. So if you don't sleep right, you're going to be wanting to feel more awake through the day.
And eat more.
That's right. The body's reaction to that is, I need something calorie dense. So straight away, you're going to go, okay, and what's more calorie dense than fat and carbohydrates together? And then we put fat and carbohydrate and we go look down in those supermarket aisles. Those middle aisles are full of those carb, fat scenario. And we'll just go searching for that. Because it's a natural thing. It's like kids. They'll be like, speaking of which, is he there?
Yeah. He's all right.
Yeah, like kids have an affinity towards sugar, you know, like and that sweetness, they want chocolate, and when we think about Cadbury, it's fat and it's sugar, you know, fat carbohydrate, essentially. And they'll go for it because it's a quick source of energy, so you're right. Lack of sleep will definitely get you to go towards having the things, it will override you, like it will make those things seem so appealing, like. And this is where I'm heading to next, which is about that calorie deficit space. And once we start hitting into that fasting space, and so you go, okay, but I'm asking about sleep, yeah? But it's an energy deficit that we're at.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to search for that. And you'll override that ghrelin-leptin relationship that's in an ideal, would rather it, you know, to be nice and steady, but it will actually go, all right, ghrelin, let's go, amp it up because we need more energy. I can't survive on what I've got because I'm running in the red. And I always think about it like an old school video game when the red starts flashing, you know, and that's that signal going out to your brain, like, right, ramp up, cortisol, you go, ghrelin, get out there, you know, let's go. And it will make your mind start thinking about things you're trying your best to avoid. So yes, sleep. I say you protect it like you protect money or your favourite pair of shoes, protect it, you know, because I think we just kind of like, oh, I haven't got time for that, That's not fair on you, because then it's hard for your client to achieve their goals because they're getting overridden by the hormonal shift going on. All right. So I've already spoken about the seductive duo. I kind of went there, which is that carbohydrate fat space. Which leads me then into this whole fasting world that people are in at the moment. And there is lots of research around fasting, and it definitely has its merits in the right scenario. If you have someone that says, if you ask someone, do you get hangry? And they say yes, fasting's not for them. Just on that simple question, you know the answer. Because they're too sensitive to being more hypoglycemic. And if they then fast, their sugar level's going to drop, they're going to get more hangry, and then they're going to make a poor decision when they go to eat. So, where was it going? So fasting definitely has its merits in the right scenario. But I want to point out the fact that when we start getting into a point of starvation, that triggers that starvation response, which is after 8 hours we'll start getting into a starvation response, and the body will then start to go, okay, we need to eat. and I'm going to make everything possible for that to happen, it will actually make food seem more desirable. Even things that you probably don't like will start to look good because your mind's going, you need to eat, you need to get something in. You'll fantasize about food. You probably want to talk about it. You'll smell things. You'll start to smell things. Like your brain actually will start to create that kind of get it. We need to eat. I just had a visual thought about being out in the desert in the mirage scenario. We start to create what we want to see, and the brain's very powerful for that. And so if we go, all right, well, we've got someone that's fasted essentially overnight, because we do fast every night. We don't eat unless you're prepping for some bodybuilding competition. You get up and feed yourself, but otherwise you'd be fasting through the night. And then you don't, because you've got someone that says, then I don't eat until 1 o'clock that next day. Then they can start either making poor decisions, or they'll try and make up that calorie deficit late in the night. And then they go to bed with a full stomach, and they're not actually resting right, and then we start to practice sleep again. And therefore, we increase cortisol production, which is really, I suppose, really the umbrella of all this whole talk for me is about doing our best to try and reduce the excretion of cortisol and use it for what it's actually there for. And we need it, and we do need to fight a fight. So creating a new set point, and that's that next image that I've got there. Now, I think you guys, you use a different term, right? Than
set point.
Set point? Okay.
Set point. Homeostasis. Homeostasis.
Okay, yes. So when we're creating a new set point for our clients, so okay, we've got someone, have you ever heard about that story about the identical twins? Do you know about the other one was a high BMI, the other one was at a normal range? And so they were like, what's going on? Is this possible? They're twins, right? They've got the same genetic makeup. Like, why is this happening? Now, for whatever reason, one may have gotten sick, been on antibiotics, mucked around with her digestive bacteria, and she made poor healthy eating decisions.
Abused diets.
Sorry?
Abused her diets.
Abused diet. Well, the other twin didn't, She wasn't on antibiotics. She wasn't sick, say, when she was born, She wasn't put in the incubator, wasn't on antibiotics. So she's got good, diverse bacteria. She had a bit of understanding around eating. Great. So then we've got one sister who's got a high BMI and one normal. So let's just go to the high BMI. So she's now at that obese level. We're like, okay, how are we going to get her down? Every time we bring her calorie intake too far down, she'll rebound just like an elastic band. You just keep removing. You let go and they'll just fly in the other direction and they put the weight back on. It's like, okay, well, how do we stop that from happening? And so they've been doing a whole bunch of research, and this has really been around for a while, but we're kind of giving light to it again now because we're realising that there's definitely merit to it, that we better off going, okay, what calorie intake do you need? Let's do that, and then let's take away some calories, so you can take away anywhere from 3 to 5 calories, so there's a slight deficit. And then we give that back in a fortnight. We give those calories back. So then what we start doing is we're essentially start changing the goalposts of where her set point of where her weight is. So we're giving her a calorie intake for 100 kilos, and then she may lose 500. We give her those 300 to 500 calories back, depending on the person. Give them back for 2 weeks, and then we take it back and we keep doing that. Once my client's lost about 10 kilos, I'll then recalculate it to suit their new set point. Because then what happens is they start to they'll come and they'll say to you, I just feel like even on the reducing calorie weight fortnight, that I just can't do that anymore. It's like, awesome, let's now recalculate. And then we go, right, then I do, and then once I start getting down to that pointy and I start doing about 300 calories more than the 5, just because it's just kind of getting down there, and 500 calories when we're reducing the calories from what it was there now again, and then reducing 500, it can be a bit much for them. So I just find that, but you've got to just question. So it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off until they reach their ideal weight.
It's interval
And
dieting.
it is, exactly. And then what they're doing throughout that is they do need to use the MyFitnessPal, because you do really need to be on it. If you find someone that's really struggling and going, I just can't do that, I don't have time for it, I'm not into it, get them to do it every third to second day. So at least then they can see. If they then say to you, I'm not losing weight, then you got to say the only way that I can be there when I can be there with you when I'm not there with you is through that MyFitnessPal and being able to gauge it that way. It's you know, I wish there was another way. I really wish there was another way, but it just works so well when they do concentrate on
What about refeeds or a day a week where they eat a extended amount of calories?
They could do it. I mean, I try not to be. Some people need it.
Yeah.
You know, like some people just need it. Some people go, if I come away from this, I'm just going to go and not come back. And then some people are like, I just need to have 5 minutes somewhere of just feeling like I don't need to count anything. I'd rather than a day, just give you a meal. I'd rather than go a whole day, because then they're starting to change their mindset. Because I know a lot of people go, oh, fucked up now. I'm just gonna do it for the rest of the day now. What? No, just get back on the next meal. Like, you don't have to ruin everything for yourself. And that's that whole trust building stuff, and that's when that psychological part comes into play, because you need them to go, fine, you did that, that's okay, no stress, but just next time, don't lose the rest of the day, you know, like, and that's good for you. And be honest, like, you need to rebuild trust with yourself. You've spent, you know, whatever time frame it is, it's irrelevant, but you've lost that trust for yourself, and you need to rebuild that. And the way you can do that is, yeah, all right, you had a cheat meal. All right, that's going to ruin, it doesn't ruin everything you've done. Because that's that real, it really is a high BMI state of thinking. You know, it's like, oh, I've done it. And it just feels like such a long road ahead. So I just think if you go right and just kind of give them the clearance on that, because they're looking to you to say, it's all right, you're all right. And I know, I feel right in saying, well, you just got to, you know, and that's cool. But I think sometimes it's better for us to give them another way to think about it, rather than, you know, I know you don't say they've ruined everything, but for them to go, well, that's not the end of it. I haven't ruined everything, and I can just get back on board. And that's really there's two tricks to being healthy. One is you've got to be organised, and the other one is get back on board ASAP. Like, don't go and just disappear into the unhealthy space for months, and then they turn into years, and you're like, oh, I've still got that picture on the fridge, you know? Like, so we're just going to try and get them back on track ASAP, pun intended. So where was I? Creating a new set point. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, calorie deficit of 300 to 500 calories on the 2 weeks off. If they, you know, I know there's something that's common that Brian and I spoke about in the gym. What people tend to do is a weekend comes and then they kind of go off into old habits again. Maybe that is time for you to go, you know what, on a weekend, I want you to have one cheat meal. Just so they feel like they've got something that they can be a bit cheat, but always give it with this clause. The cheat meal is only going to disrupt what you've been working towards, and I can see how hard you've been working. So I don't want you to do it in a way when you're eating that you're actually eating it with a positive mindset, rather than going, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I feel bad, and then just inhaling it and not be present and chew whatever treat food you choose. Because you do the running. I did this in an actual business networking group with Bryden that I was part of, and got everyone just to sit there and quietly eat a bit of chocolate. Like, I did a nutrition talk and I gave everyone it was dark, I couldn't help it, but I gave everyone a piece of dark chocolate. I got them to close their eyes and actively eat it and be very aware about the way it felt, what you're feeling. And honestly, I mean, whether people tell them the truth or not, they really don't. I know I've done it, and I know when I'm mindfully eating something that I think, oh, it's not ideal, that I going. But when you do that unconscious or that guilt eating, you'll want more because you weren't present and aware for it. So provide them with those tools about their mindset around them eating, and they'll be better off with this whole shifting set point. You know, like the set point stuff's really kind of our business and our language, but we need to get their head to catch up with where we're wanting to take them.
Maria, have you heard of Dr. Nick Fuller?
Fuller, I have. Someone's recently mentioned that.
University of Sydney.
YouTube.
Ah, okay.
Is this the
He's interval fasting guy.
He's that, but he does it in like a month.
That's right. Yeah, look, I've only done the fortnight.
Yep.
I'm sure there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know, it's the same concept.
Yep.
I don't know on a physiological level, doing 4-week intervals, how that changes. I'd have to look into it. But I know that I've done it clinically with me, and I've definitely got the research to show it, that they're doing fortnightly is fine. I like, for me, just thinking about that just off the cuff, the fact that it's fortnight, I think it's a short time of space. So if you're going, oh, well, then I'm 500 calorie deficit for 2 weeks, it's all right, it's coming, I'm just about to, you know, I can get through this, or it's like, oh, I've got 3 more weeks of this, you know. So our brain is such a part of us being healthy that I'd rather support the big guy, you know, than try to kind of, sometimes science can get in the way, I think, in that regard. Like, we just got to remember, to get them to catch up with that.
What's the best way to, I guess, reset a fatigued adrenal gland?
The adrenal?
Yeah, how do we reset that for
How you
people?
reset it? Well, it depends. So you can it's what we call carb cycling. So if your adrenals are fatigued and you're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're just like, ping, I'm awake, and then, you know, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you just want to go to sleep, like full on want to go to sleep, then we do what we call carb cycling. And so we do no carbohydrate in the morning, only 1 serve if must at lunch, and then you do a full serve carbohydrate. Now, I'm not talking pizza, I'm talking sweet potato, you could do white potato if you wanted. I'd rather it cold though, because then it has a resistant starch, but that's a whole other session. So we go sweet potato, pumpkin, quinoa, are really good kind of carbohydrate sources, and then you do that at night. And you essentially just do that, and then what will happen, it will get your circadian rhythm back in, obviously with the support of doing sleep hygiene.
Wouldn't a high glycemic index carb help that more?
Yeah, but you just got to get it in the right part of the day.
What if it's right before bed?
Yeah, so that's what I said, carbohydrate at night.
You said sweet potato, but not like...
That's carbohydrate.
Yeah.
What do you want?
That's something like fast releasing, like bowl of cereal or
Pascal
something.
fruit lolly or something.
Why not? Do you guys get that? What we're talking about?
Is that manipulating the whole relationship between cortisol and insulin? Like,
Yeah.
Is that what it's working with?
And you need to have some sort of, like, you'll see people where they're just like so low carbohydrate, but it's mucking their sleep. You actually need carbohydrate to help with that.
We
Sleep cycle.
wouldn't meet many people like that, but
What?
not in our industry.
Carbohydrate?
Carbohydrate, yeah.
Too much carbohydrate?
Too little.
Too little?
We
I've
would.
seen it. I've seen it with me, where people just go and try to do this whole keto space, and then they just end up...
Dickheads.
Huh?
Nothing. Do you two get about the carb cycling?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Do you get it?
Yeah, there's a woman, her name's Viva Rom. She's an American woman, and she's done a lot on that. Her focus is more to help them with menopause through that whole part, because they're just waking and so on. But that carb cycle component is something that can work really well. But, you know, it's good for them to do it people often go out and they do these different diets and styles on their own, and then they're not necessarily tweaking where need be. So, you know, I know it sounds like a sales pitch, but it is definitely worth them doing it with someone and being guided properly rather than trying to just wing it themselves. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I think I was just looking at my notes. I think I did cover about being in a high BMI and then extreme calorie deficit. So you get lots of mums, I find, do this, where they're just so busy they're not eating. They feed the kids and they don't feed themselves. And that's how when they're starting to hit that calorie deficit, and they are kind of hitting this starvation point. And then what they'll be is thinking like a kid, I need quick calorie intake, so I'm going to go for something dense and fast. And they're just setting up in this vicious cycle. So just be mindful of that.
When you do drop your calories down, fat cells increase.
They shrink.
I heard the body can make more.
More fat cells? Yeah, they can make more cells, but they don't get rid of them. They only shrink.
No, but they make more of them. But what about, talk to us, when the body's metabolism slows down, what are the main, obviously like your liver and your skin and your hair and your nails, the production of that obviously slows down. What else slows down?
Your immune system.
Yep.
You'll catch every cold going around.
So that's a good indication.
Yeah.
Liver, kidneys.
What was the question again?
So when you are in a severe calorie deficit,
Right,
so people in a severe calorie deficit might not lose weight because their body's sacrificing everything else, including muscle mass, in order to...
So if they're doing that, 9 times out of 10 they're probably dehydrated as well, because if they're not eating enough, they're 9 times out of 10 not drinking enough either, so then that will definitely put strain on the kidney. Kidney gets strained.
Injuries.
Liver slows down because energy has to go to the kidney to support the kidney because it's got priority and hierarchy in the body. Fat metabolism slows down because the liver isn't functioning the way it should. Yeah, it's a very simple way to put it, but it's essentially what can happen. Definitely fatigue, of course, mental fog.
Thermogenesis, the breakdown of food.
Food, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, you at a calorie deficit and you fasting or you're not eating throughout the day for extend it over a long period of time, you'll get people going, I'm just not hungry. And what they've done is they've actually then gone, the body's tried to engage that, for whatever reason they've kicked it away. And then their hydrochloric acid production will reduce, and therefore the hunger signal will start to diminish. And then they'll go, but then when I eat, I feel so bloated, because you just got rid of everything, that you were given first up in life, and you've over time diminished that. So then you could say something like, just to get you started again, in the morning you can do either some apple cider vinegar and water, and if they cringe at the thought of that, you can do lemon and water. And really what we're doing is we're just starting to mimic hydrochloric acid and just trying to really start to stimulate that, so that when they do eat, they're not going, and feel bogged down by it. It actually helps the breakdown of the food.
Do you know much about the body, so when they do such a severe calorie deficit, how all those processes in the body slow down, so then they're not expending as much energy anyway, so that sort of goes back to how much they're eating anyway, so that's like a homeostasis.
Stasis, yeah, find that, but at what point...
So you get efficient, is what you're saying. And what are the other processes of this efficiency? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so like they've just been doing some research, like when people go, like they might be eating just over 2,000 calories a day, and they did studies where then they just reduced that to, say, 1,500. They noticed that in terms of movement, they weren't moving as much anymore.
Yeah.
So like their bodies sort of mimics.
They're cold all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, that's a point I probably missed, is that whole... So exercise will actually excrete cortisol.
Yep.
But the fitter we get, the less we produce, because the body can handle that stress. So it's interesting, and the reason I'm saying it with that is because when people go down to that level, any bit of exercise is going to seem stressful. It's too much. And so it's that incremental shift that they need to make. Just like we're incrementally shifting their set point down by slowly giving and taking back calories as we go down. The same would go, in my mind, is that we would slowly go, all right, let's just start with whatever minutes, and then just do breathing for the rest of it. you know, if you've got a half-hour session or whatever, you know, like just to kind of be mindful of where they're at. That, you know, that kind of old school mentality of, you know, my personal trainer smashed me and then you never see them again. It's not ideal. So that whole, you know, going, I acknowledge that this person's been doing this for a bit. You need to kind of go slow, give them breaks in between, because in those breaks, those intervals of intensity, to be honest, as humans, we actually really like this interval style training. We have an intense break, because they have a chance to reduce the cortisol levels in our body. And you'll find you can meet any athlete and you stop them for 5 minutes to take a test, they just naturally have a high cortisol level all the time because they're in that high endurance level. It's just the nature of it. So doing that short, restful, you know, burst kind of process with people that are starting out is going to be good, because then you'll feel their confidence. And you explain that to them. The more fitter you get, the better you're going to handle this exercise. And sometimes it seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised on how people just need to hear it in relation to them, because there's so much information going on. They're just like, oh, is that for me? Is that for me? But if you tell them that's for them, they're going to like that. They'll work with that. You'll give them that to come to the next session. Okay, so to just quickly, and I'm happy to stay around.
Should do some questions.
Yeah, I just want to give, just quickly before we do that, is about how to reduce stress, because it's like a good and well that we're all stressed, but how do we reduce that? So, like I said, obviously sleep, which I've talked about in a bit of detail. Meditation, totally agree with Bridens. There is so much evidence out there about meditation. And honestly, you don't need to be like a yogi and sit there and do 3 hours in dead silence. Like, it literally could be 5 minutes. It does not have to be much. And just to even start with 5 minutes. And they'll find that over time they'll want to increase anyway. They'll be in that state and they'll enjoy that. Breathing. I know Oddie does quite a bit of breathing stuff when I'm training with him. Breathing is really important, really definitely helps, like I said, to bring down our nervous system from a sympathetic nervous system down into, sympathetic to parasympathetic, so that relaxing state. You even do it yourself. You get stressed and you take a deep breath and run your hands through your hair or whatever it may be, and you actually do start to calm it down, so really important. Definitely not to eat stressed, because you're eating stressed, and so you're in a fight or flight response. You will naturally slow your activity of digesting food, so really try and be mindful of that. And then let's not forget about all those fun things like mindful colouring in, reading, you know, singing in the car, having a bit of a longer shower. Don't tell Waterworks I said that. You know, whatever their thing is, and that's something to talk to them about, is what do you miss doing? Like, what is something you do? And for them to go, oh, I can't, you know, go and bike ride for 3 hours. Well, fine, so be it, but can you get the bike, start preparing the bike and do something to, you know, work towards that and working in those steps rather than going, you need to just get to that big point straight away. You know, starting small. And it's that whole James Clear, and there's heaps of other people out there doing it, but it's that mindset around changing 1% a day. Not going, I need to change everything in one day, because it just doesn't last.
That's just getting out to nature, isn't it?
Yeah, but
just
I'm
walking
talking
around
about
outside.
changing habits. So some old habits really die hard, and they can take a long time. So but if you go, all right, well, I'm going to actively do something towards my weight loss goal or towards stress management 1% each day, rather than going, I need to be meditating for 10 hours and I need to do 5 minutes of mindful colouring in and I've got to sing, and don't do it all in one day. This is going to be too much. 1% a day, and then as you think 1% a day over a year, you'll be very close to where your goal, you know, where you wanted your goal to be by the end of that year. So just take that pressure off people, and I just find that they're more engaged and don't feel like they're going to stuff up and have you be upset with them or them disappointed in themselves as well.
we generally get people to focus. Like if they're a smoker, we'll get them to focus on their exercise first.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
diet, and then gradually smoking will be a prerequisite of those.
Completely, yeah. Just got to find something small, something achievable, and like I said at the beginning, is that rebuilding trust with yourself is very important. You know, I really like doing this a lot. At the moment, for me, I'm doing no caffeine for 30 days because just one of those, just want to see, can I trust myself? You know, just build that. And then I've got a list. I've just written a list, and it's a good tip to do. Just get your client to write a list of all the things they've been wanting to do. Just choose one. Just choose one. Don't choose 50 million of them. Just back to that analogy. Pull, take away, and then it's just going to fling back in the other direction. So, questions?
Tony?
Do you deal with a lot of people that want to like put on weight?
Yeah, it's a small space. I'd say it's probably about 2% in my space. Yeah, definitely calorie-dense meals, so lots of good fats like avocado, eggs, are really good ones. You know, I'm not scared of butters. To say to live on saturated fat, but saturated fat isn't as what we thought how bad it was. Sugar ends up being a bad guy now. Eating, you know, you can even drink your meals, you know, so it's not feeling like they're just constantly chewing all the time. You know, soups, stews, broths, so bone broths, you know, so got that fat component in there as well, gut healing as well. And they do have to pay attention to calories, but just like we're going down, I'd go the other way in reverse, exactly. And to be fair, I'd probably do, rather than a 500 calorie increase, I'd probably go with that 300, even 250. And then you've got to consider the fact of what their psychological view is on food.
You got to explain to them really well.
Process around food, then.
Got to explain to them really well what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to. You have to be really honest with them. Like make them feel like that they're kind of they're in your team to help them.
They're on their way.
Yeah.
On their way.
Any more?
In terms of changing that set point, that 2 week on, 2 week off thing, would you get the same result just by increasing or decreasing slightly every week by like 10, 15, 20 calories?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I think that when I was just thinking about it, your metabolism. See, the idea behind it is that you're kind of tricking your body.
Yeah.
I don't know whether 10% decrease.
No, not 10%.
Sorry.
It's 10 calories or 20 or 50 or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. Have you heard about that?
That's what I've been doing with my clients.
Have you? And has that helped?
Yeah, it's done pretty well.
So what are you doing? 10 calories a week?
So for example, I'll just use Rach for example. I always
Yeah.
use her. So I didn't lose weight for like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And she was eating like 1,200 calories. So over the process of like a few months, I was like, you're not gonna lose any weight, but I'm just gonna bring your calories up. So now she's at like 2,000 now. Well, highest we got her was like 2,300. Then yeah, she ended up going from 1,200 calories to 2,300 and lost 7 kilos in the process.
Yeah.
So it's just a gradual bump up until she starts putting on weight, and then you cut it again, yeah?
No, it's just like, so pretty much the process was week 1, extra 50 calories, she put on weight, no, cool, we're bringing an extra 50 in. Did you lose weight? Nah, maintain. Alright, sweet. Go another 50. It's like, yeah, I lost a little bit of weight. Okay, cool, go up 100, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Which is what
It's
I just
working,
said.
Oddie. You know,
It's like what I just said.
I just think,
Gradually step it up, and you cut it down to lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think if that's what, that's great, fine. I just don't, I think on kind of, as far as the masses are concerned, maybe some people, I just find when they come to me in my clinic, that it's really hard for me to get them to do MyFitnessPal and try to calorie count. So if someone is really good at doing that, I think that it suits them, but if not, then what about if she wasn't keen on doing, that 50 calorie?
Yeah.
It's such a small space to live in, but it's working.
Apart from
Yeah,
a
it's good.
very low GI diet like meats and fats,
Yeah.
how else would you tackle insulin dependency?
So when people with insulin,
Like,
something,
insulin dependency or high blood sugar levels.
yeah,
Type 1
regular
diabetes.
eating. So
Yeah.
did you say, what did you say, fat and?
Fats and protein.
Yeah, right. Other than that, I'd eat small regular meals, making sure that there's protein in each one. I think that's really probably the way to do it though, Pride. I don't know that they're...
So there'd be no hormonal factors, no supplements or
insulin?
anything you could suggest they take?
Well, you could do green tea. It's very good for the pancreas.
Yeah.
Is this what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not understanding your question. Yeah, definitely you could do green tea. Not making sure they're not just having a carbohydrate meal. Like there's always that protein component in there and fat, even if it's a snack. So like for an example, banana, definitely like pair that with a nut spread. Just to get that fat component rather than just have just a straight up banana. And it'll give them greater satiety anyway. Because so you're saying if people have got, I feel like I'm not understanding.
Okay, so someone's come to us and their blood sugars are 16
Sure.
and they're pre-diabetic
Yeah.
and they're insulin dependent, like
They're on insulin. Oh, they're
Yeah.
taking it. Oh, right. Yeah. Ketogenic. And
Yeah.
ketogenic diet's the way to go. The research says it over and over. Like I remember there was a period. I feel like a couple of years ago. Everyone's like, I want to be on the ketogenic and come in. Like, can you help me with that? I'm like, yeah, but like, why are you on that? Like, and I honestly only put people on a ketogenic diet if they're diabetic or they've got epileptic seizures. Like they're the two that the research is showing they're the best reasons to be on a ketogenic diet. Yeah, it helps with weight management, but you don't. This whole, I think that we're all starting to wake up to the fact that not one diet's going to sort us all out, and so we just got to. Yeah, for pre-diabetic, definitely more get the carbohydrate right down. Yeah, that kind of like 25%, 20, 15 if they can handle it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Josh, you got a question? No. Mike?
Wouldn't a ketogenic diet for a diabetic person really screw around with like their blood sugars though? Like, isn't it really
Lowers
dangerous
them.
for
Because
them
it
to
lowers
be?
your blood sugar.
Lowers your blood sugar.
Yeah, I know, but wouldn't it be dangerous to have them in that low
They
levels?
won't go that low.
Yeah.
They just were there.
Diabetics
You
do this.
think about it.
Go
They're
up
the
and they go
receptors.
down. That's what they're like.
So you think about how someone becomes diabetic, type 2, is the receptors on the cell become damaged from overuse, basically. It's like someone kept going trying to open the door with the wrong key constantly, you end up wrecking the lot. So they're not as sensitive for the glucose to leave the blood and into the cell. So it's not going to... I haven't heard that. And you're still having carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like, you're still having some carbohydrate. If you went with zero carbohydrate, potentially, but the body will break down. Like there's a backup defense that even with protein, that the body will start to break down and convert it into a glucose molecule anyway. So there's a backup mechanism. So it's not. I don't see how that. I don't think it could happen. I don't think unless I don't know everything. Yeah.
Yeah. The only
I
reason
wish I
I
did,
asked
but I
that
don't.
was because one of my clients is diabetic and like has like bloody, what was it? She had like, she's gluten, lactose, and all that. So not celiac.
How the fuck she get diabetic then?
I have no clue. Fucking, I don't know. Probably
Should be
much
neat.
more.
Maybe she could have become celiac from having, eating too much bread, like
Or
celiac's not
sausages.
only, you're not only born with that, you can
Yeah.
actually create it if you abuse your bowel enough.
So as a laugh, I was like, why don't you just jump on keto then? They were like, nah, can't because of the blood sugar. And I was like, I don't know anything about this.
We had
Yeah.
I had a
Give her a
diabetic.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll explain it.
I had a pre-diabetic on, I think his blood sugars were 16.5. Within 2 weeks, after eating meat for breakfast, he was down to about 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was Emma Monane's husband, Jerome.
Did you ever figure out what happened to Glenn?
Glenn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just kidney stones.
Oh, okay, cool.
But no, it was just he had raised levels because he had a virus.
Man, keto's great. It's
That's
like, hey, I'm on keto. I will have like 10 pieces of bacon for breakfast. So I still fat, dude.
Yeah, no, it's still good to get. You kind of get carbohydrates in the vegetable component anyway. You know, like they're not gonna. For them to have 0 carb. I can't see how they would. I mean, if they. No,
Did keto for 6 months. It was great.
worth looking into.
How much
Yeah,
weight
I
did you lose?
don't see any reason for them to drop that low unless they're prone to hypoglycemia. That's another story. Yeah, but then you eat regularly. You just get them to eat regularly, 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, and that will sort that.
That is? No questions, Rudolph? No.
Well, I hope that was helpful. If you go away and think, well, I have no idea what she meant by that. I just remember this one thing she said, and I have no idea what that was. Just call me and we'll talk about it.